As the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. You know that, right? Blessed are the peacemakers. I made peace. Remember, Hillary said, he will take us into war. No, I took us out of all these wars. I got us out of Syria, got us out of Iraq. I protected Israel. They would have been in a big problem. But I'll be your peacemaker, and I am the only candidate who can make this promise to you. I will prevent World War III. We are very close to World War
later.
In this moment of tragedy, I want to say to them and to the world and to terrorists everywhere that the United States stands with Israel. We will not ever fail to have their back. We'll make sure that they have the help their citizens need and they can continue to defend themselves. You know, the world's seen appalling images. Thousands of rockets in the space of hours raining down on Israeli cities. When I got up this morning, started this at 7:30, 8 o'clock, my calls. Hamas terrorists crossing in Israel, killing not only Israeli soldiers, but Israeli civilians. In the street, in their homes, innocent people murdered, wounded, entire families taken hostage by Hamas. Just days after Israel marked the holiest of days in the Jewish calendar. It's unconscionable.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about an extremely complex, disturbing, sensitive, and sad situation that is happening in Israel as they are now at war with Hamas because Hamas attacked them early this morning in what can be described as a surprise attack, so surprising that defense analysts are calling Israel's inability to defend itself from this surprise attack as a complete defense failure. Now, this attack was done by air, land, and sea. Hamas launched thousands of rockets from Gaza into Israeli territory, and apparently this overwhelmed the Iron Dome. Okay, more rockets than usual actually landed. There was an invasion on the ground in which you had Hamas terrorists enter Israeli towns and kidnap Israeli citizens, and now are holding them hostage. There are videos of that online. Again, extremely disturbing. There are people that are having their homes invaded. They're being shot and killed on the spot. There's been hundreds of Israelis and Palestinians that have lost their lives thus far. Again, apparently that this was an attack that was done by sea as well, too. Again, just an all-around disturbing, sad, and sensitive situation. And it's something that, quite honestly, guys, I'm not used to anymore. Okay, back when we lived under Bush, Obama, I was used to seeing this type of news. Again, probably not to this level, but this type of news coming out in the Middle East, the violence, the destruction, I was very used to it, okay? Under Trump, we got spoiled because we didn't have news like this, or we didn't have these types of events happening. It seemed like for the first time in my lifetime, we were actually moving towards peace, especially in this region, more peace on the world stage in general under the strong leadership of Trump. And now you guys can see, obviously, that with Trump out of office, we have a lot more issues to deal with on the world stage, and that it seems as if America's enemies, the enemies of the West, are trying the West. They're trying America, again, including our allies, Israel, because of the weak leadership of the United States. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and actually play this video from Fox News of Pete Hegseth explaining kind of the geographical dynamics of this attack so you guys can get a better understanding of what happened in this situation. And then we're going to get into some of the responses here from Trump and some of the Republicans because they're blasting Biden and holding him partially accountable for this attack because he gave money to Iran, or gave money back to Iran, and Iran backs Hamas, which is the terrorist organization responsible for the attack. So without further ado, roll the clip.
Break it down just a little bit on the maps of the region. Trey mentioned a lot of the dynamics around the state of Israel. So just to orient into the map, this is the state of Israel right here. And they're surrounded effectively by enemies of their state. You mentioned the Gaza Strip controlled by Hamas. That's in the southern part of the country. Up north, you have Hezbollah, which is strongly supported by Syria and Iran over here. And then you have the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, which has Islamic Jihad and Hamas fighters there as well. So with this attack in the south out of the Gaza Strip, Hamas is hoping that fighters in Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon and in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem might join in that fight. But let's zoom in just a little bit to the southern part of the country, which is where Trey is this morning. So as I mentioned, this is the Gaza Strip. It was controlled by Israel for decades. In 2005, it was given over to the Palestinian Authority as part of a peace deal. Well, within 2 years, Hamas, a terrorist organization, took over the Gaza Strip. And they have for years been collecting rockets, building tunnels, attempting to infiltrate the south of Israel and commit terrorist attacks against the population there. I've spent a lot of time in the south of Israel in those communities like Sderot, right here, right on the edge where you can see that border fence and where there are reports of casualties of Israeli civilians. Now, a lot of military defense facilities for the IDF here, too. But one of the things to note is that as Hamas has gained power, they've gained sophistication with their rockets and ability to hit. So these red spots are spots where, on the map, according to the IDF, Israeli rockets have hit. This is Jerusalem right here. There are reports that there have been strikes inside Jerusalem as well. Tel Aviv is up here. Rockets used to only be able to hit adjacent communities. Now they're able to reach further into the state of Israel, into civilian populations. And because it was 2,000 to 3,000 rockets, guys, is what we're hearing this morning, the IDF famously has the Iron Dome batteries that are there to shoot them down. They couldn't shoot them all down. And so the IDF is responding from places like Jerusalem to the south to try to take back territory that a terrorist organization stated by our country and others in Hamas is holding Israelis hostages and pulled many of them back into the Gaza Strip, which is completely controlled by a terrorist organization. So, guys, the lesson has been throughout time, if you give land over to radical Islamists, they're going to do what radical Islamists do, which is to seek Israel's destruction and wipe them off the map. And so they use what little international aid they get. They channel it not toward their people and building schools and building hospitals, but into building tunnels and supplying weapons to their terrorist fighters, all of which somehow was kept mostly under wraps. It sounds like Israel is mostly surprised by this. This is a sophisticated attack. I mean, as someone who's been involved in ground infantry operations, to coordinate air and land, and it sounds like maybe even sea with paragliders and motorcycles and bulldozers, this was something somehow they kept out of the reach of Israeli intelligence and sprung surprise on a holy day.
My goodness.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you guys are familiar with some of the history of this conflict, and you know that this has been going on a lot longer than just since, the mid-2000s? Honestly, this conflict has been going on literally forever, okay? It's one of the most enduring conflicts. I mean, again, you can trace it all the way back to the 19th century, and some people may even go further back than that, okay, in regards to this conflict. But with that being said, again, the focus of this video is more about the Biden administration and some of the actions that the Biden administration took before this attack, which is what Republicans are focused on, because they are actually blasting Biden for releasing $6 billion in frozen Iran funds ahead of the Hamas attack on Israel. Now, why is this important? Why are Republicans bringing this up? Well, because we have strong reason to believe that Iran is supporting Hamas financially, okay? And the Biden administration, in exchange for American hostages, basically gave Iran $6 billion. Now, the Biden administration is saying, look, we're not actually really giving it to them in the sense that they can just use the money for whatever they want. They only can use it for what we say they can use it for, which is mainly humanitarian, like food, resources, things like that. But the Iranians have pushed back against that and said, look, this is our money and we can use it for whatever we want to use it for.
But what is your expectation of its use? We're told that it's for humanitarian purposes, food and medicine. Do you believe you have the right to use that money in any way that you see fit?
This money belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and naturally, we will decide, the Islamic Republic of Iran will decide to spend it wherever we need it.
So if I hear you clearly, that it will be used for more than humanitarian purposes in your view.
Humanitarian means whatever the Iranian people needs. So this money will be budgeted for those needs. And the needs of the Iranian people will be decided and determined by the Iranian government.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, again, the Iranian president is saying, look, we can use the money for what we want to use it for. And I honestly have no faith in the Biden administration to actually keep track of what the money is being used for, because we can't even keep track of what the money is being used for in our own government, in our own budget. We really don't know where the money is going. So to try to control where the money goes in somebody else's government and how they use it, I can imagine that's a pretty tall task, okay? But if they can do that with Iran, then that's all the more reason why they should be able to do that with U.S. government money and the money that we spend here in the United States. But hey, you know, this is where we're at right now, okay? Now, again, this comes as Iran is openly supporting Hamas for doing this. In fact, there's speculation that Iran's support of Hamas is them trying to wreck the peace agreement, the peace deal that is currently being orchestrated between Saudi Arabia and Israel to, again, bring about more peace in the Middle East. So let's read a little bit about this real quick. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's top military advisor said Tehran supported the attacks by Hamas against Israel on Saturday and would come to back the Islamic fighters until the liberation of Palestine and Jerusalem. The remarks by Yahya Rahim Safavi, a former commander of the country's Revolutionary Guards, will only fan suspicion that Tehran played a direct role in supporting its traditional ally, Hamas, in the well-planned attacks that have killed at least 40 people and injured more than 700. Now, the death toll is a lot higher than that, okay? I believe that this article is a little dated, right, considering where the death toll continues to climb by the minute. Interventions by Rahim Safavi and other senior Irani policymakers will also be seen by Iran's long-running regional rival, Saudi Arabia, as a threatening signal that Tehran is willing to stir up regional conflict to prevent Riyadh from normalizing ties with Israel as the U.S. wants. We support the commendable Al-Aqsa storm operations, Rahim Safavi was quoted as saying by state media in Iran, using Hamas's name for Saturday's rocket attacks and incursions. Yeah, so again, there's videos and clips of the Iranians essentially shouting death to Israel, death to the United States, that's floating around on the internet. But again, despite all this, okay, despite the speculation that maybe, just maybe, Iran is financially supporting this or backing it, the media and the Biden administration say that there's no evidence that Iran financially backed this attack against Israel with the funds that were released by the Biden administration. Take a look.
The White House has pushed back, as we've reported, on suggestions by Republican presidential candidates that the recent hostage deal that involved the release of $6 billion contributed to the Hamas attack. The $6 billion is still currently held in a Qatari bank account with U.S. Treasury oversight. The money came from Iranian oil sales to South Korea and did not include U.S. taxpayer dollars. NSC spokesperson Adrian Watson said in a statement, quote, "Not a single cent from these funds has been spent yet, and when it is spent, it can only be spent on things like food and medicine for the Iranian people. These funds have absolutely nothing to do with the horrific attacks today, and this is not the time to spread disinformation."
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that, okay? You can make up your own mind in regards to whether or not you believe the Biden administration in regards to the use of those funds, but I'm not sure giving $6 billion to Iran is ever a good idea, because you have incentivized what is the situation that is going on right now in Israel, where you have Israelis being kidnapped and taken hostage. And, you know, again, that's that seems to be kind of what happens when you embolden certain groups of people who are known to commit these types of terroristic acts. So that being said, I actually want to play a clip of President Trump, who, again, I wish was president for situations like this. He's the type of person that I would trust to handle a situation like this. I want you guys to hear what he had to say about this situation. Take a look.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. But this country is just headed so badly. The Israeli attack was made because we are perceived as being weak and ineffective and with a really weak leader. And we will discuss it in a few minutes. But isn't that a shame what's happening all over the world? Things are not what they were just 3 years ago. You take a look. They weren't ever as good, and now they are really probably maybe the worst we've ever seen in terms of our country. When you look at the Afghanistan pullout, you ever see anything like that? The most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. The Hamas terrorist invasion of Israeli territory, and the murder of Israeli soldiers today, and the brutal murder of citizens is an act of savagery that must and will be crushed. It has to be dealt with very powerfully. This is a time where the United States needs leadership. We don't have leadership. But Israel is at war, and the United States obviously is going to stick with Israel, and strongly. The war happened for two reasons. The United States is giving and gave to Iran $6 billion, $6 billion, over hostages. And, there was a very good trade. They got 5 hostages. We got 5 hostages. Okay, that's the good news. The bad news is, and their hostages were tough, by the way, I have to tell you. That was, okay, let's assume they're doing just fine. But it was 5 for 5. But in addition to that, we agreed to free up $6 billion. And that is an absolute disaster. And I would not be at all surprised if part of that tremendous wealth that they just accumulated went into all of a sudden watching this level of aggression. They didn't have that level of aggression with me. They didn't have it. This would have never happened with me either. You know what wouldn't have happened? Ukraine wouldn't have happened. Taiwan and all this tough talk with Taiwan wouldn't have happened. And what's going on with Israel right now, people were shocked. I wasn't shocked because 2 weeks ago we gave them $6 billion. Think of it. So we get 5, they get 5, but the difference is we have to give $6 billion. $6 billion! Does anyone know what a billion is? $6 billion. It's like it's water. And we have now, our country is a perceived, we're really a country that's looked at with this tremendous perceived weakness with a grossly incompetent and corrupt president. He's an incompetent man. He's corrupt. I don't know if he makes it to the starting gate. I guess in a way he does. We want to.
Yeah, I agree with Trump 100%. Okay, I think that what you're seeing happening on the world stage is that our enemies have realized that we have a weak, incompetent fool running the White House, running what used to be the most powerful and feared country in the world. I'm not sure anymore. And they know that, hey, you know what? They may be able to get away with stuff like this. Okay, they're emboldened by the weakness that has come from our leadership. And that's why you see what happened in Afghanistan, Ukraine, and now you're seeing what's happening in Israel. Again, I don't think that this is a coincidence. I think that at the end of the day, this is the consequences of having weak leadership. At least when Trump was in office, I don't think you saw our enemies try this stuff on the world stage against our allies because they knew what the consequences would be. They knew what it would be. Okay? I mean, I have to say this all the time, but when Trump clapped General Soleimani from Iran, the mainstream liberal media, they were having a fit. They were like, oh, Trump's going to cause World War III. And I was like, nah, that's a G move right there. Trump is showing Iran that, hey, I'm your daddy. We own you. Okay? Trump clapped that man and threw up the American flag like it was the set. Okay? That's what he did. And that's the type of strength that Trump showed on a frequent basis as president of the United States. And that's why you didn't see so many countries try. So again, in regards to whether or not Iran is actually really involved financially or backing it, I really don't know. But regardless, I think it is something to be said about how we continue to find ourselves in these situations that seem so rare under the Trump administration, because, you know, in my opinion, I do believe that our perceived weakness has emboldened some of our enemies around the world. So anyways, with that being said, I pray for the people of Israel. I also pray for the Palestinians as well, too, that have been caught up in this. I just pray that there is peace at the end of this. Who knows? It sounds to me like Israel may launch a full-blown invasion of the Gaza Strip. We really don't know. And again, it's a situation that's continuing to develop over time. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.